Hi guys, Cody Fisher here, coming to you live once again from the Magic Estate. This time I'm here to share with you Killer Prediction. This is a current part of my stand-up show. It packs flat, plays huge, and it involves the entire audience. No matter how big or how small, everybody takes a part in this trick. Get ready to check out Killer Prediction.
Well folks, I was going to go, but you guys have been so kind and so wonderful. Do you guys mind if I do one final trick? Damn. Okay, here we go. I'd like to try a little trick with mind reading here. I believe it's actually not more mind reading. It's kind of like a prediction here. I need to give some cards to someone. It's not a card trick really, and I'll explain that at the very end. Somebody who knows a deck of playing cards well. Somebody who knows playing cards well, sir. 100%. Promise. Wouldn't lie. I love you. Here we go. Go ahead and take that. Just hold on to those. Don't take them out of the box. Just leave them right there. Just hold on to those. Okay. A little trick with some trash. I got some trash here. I'm going to throw some balls out here, and I want you, paper balls, and I want you guys to, it is a comedy club after all. Here we go. I'm going to throw some stuff here, and I want you, if you catch it, I just want you just to take it, hold it in your hand, and just stand up. Just try not to throw it in your food. Remember, I suck at sports. Remember the beginning thing when I said, ah! Here we go. There we go, fantastic. Hi, man, what is your name? What is your name? Gwen. Gwen, everybody give Gwen a big round of applause. Okay, Gwen, you stay there. Gwen, you have some decisions to make here. He's got a deck of cards. There are 52 playing cards. Ace, 2, king of hearts, ace, 2, king of clubs, ace, 2, king of spades, and ace, 2, king of diamonds. 2 red ones and 2 black ones. Diamonds, clubs, hearts, spades. Are we going to use a red card or a black card, Gwen? It's going to be red. Is it going to be a heart or a diamond? It's going to be a heart. Everybody give Gwen a big round of applause. You may have a seat. All right, I need somebody else here. I'm going to throw this paper over here. Somebody in this general direction. Catch it for me. Here we go. We got it? All right, all the ladies in the crowd. Here we go. Check it out. All righty. Hi, man. What's your name? Connie, nice to meet you, Connie. Have we ever met before? Today. Today? Okay, first time. Here we go, rock and roll. Connie, here we go. Yeah, this is the first time we've met. Thanks for coming to see my show, sweetie. All right, the conster, here we go. All right, we're going to use a card. Is it going to be a high card or a low card? Party with Connie. All right, sweet. It's going to be a high card. It's going to be odd or even. Even, a high even number. Can you name like a high even number from ace to king? Name a high even number. What? 10. Everybody give Connie a big round of applause. All right. I need to get one more person involved here. One more person involved. Just hold on to your trash. You take that. Somewhere over here, just... There we go. All right, I got a guy. Yeah. Hey, man, what's your name, buddy?
Gary.
Gary, nice to meet you, Gary. Gary, you have a very important question now. I hope this doesn't sound too personal. We'll just answer it just one or the other. Face up or face down?
Face up.
What'd you say?
Face up.
Face up, party with Gary. All right, here we go. All right, here we go. Go and put those in your pocket. Those are souvenirs from the show. We had a card select. It was the 10 of hearts, right? The 10 of hearts. Would you do me a favor? You guys are going to give this guy a big round of applause. He's going to bring the deck on stage for me. Give him a big round of applause. Come on up here. All right, brother. Come right over here. There we go. Stand right over here. Just right beneath the trap door. Fantastic. Cool, brother. Here we go. All right, here we have a little rubber band on here. That is for your protection. There you go. Now, the reason why I brought you up here, and what's your name again? Jordan. The reason why I have my friend Jordan up here is because magicians are known for doing tricky things with cards. You're going to be the eyes and ears of the crowd. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. I want you to answer them honestly, yes or no. Can you do that? Here we go. All these cards are facing exactly the same direction, correct? Yes?
So far,
well, except for one card. Except for one card. One card is actually facing the opposite direction, correct? Wouldn't it be amazing? Wouldn't it be an absolute miracle? Mind blower. If the one card was facing, come up here, Drew. I'm going to say that loud. I know. It is crazy. Thanks for being here and telling everybody how crazy this stuff is. The card that was facing the opposite way is the, go ahead and that loud. Was the 10. Oh. Hearts. Yeah! Thanks a lot, George. Thanks a lot, brother. Oh, wait a second. That's not the trick. Remember I told you this isn't a card trick? This was never a card trick. It was never about the cards. Before I came out here, I just threw out 3 pieces of paper, and 3 random people started just naming high, low, odd, even, red, black, ace through. If you have a piece of paper, please stand up. If you have a paper ball, please stand up. Come on, open up, stand up. Slowly open up the paper ball if you could. Can we get the house lights, please? The house lights, please. Slowly, come right up here. Come right up here, man. Bring it over here. Bring it over here. Stand right there if you would. Stand right there. Open up the paper. Open it up. Come stand right over here. Read what's on the paper. After you've read what's on the paper, hold it up high where everybody can see it above your head. Hold it up high. What does that say? 10 of hearts. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
All right, well, before we get into the full explanation, let me just give you a brief overview of what's going on. I designed this routine specifically because I wanted to make either my invisible deck or my brainwave deck routine play for a much larger audience and get a lot of people involved. Here's what's really going down. If you look right over here inside my onstage box, which we'll go over in detail later, you see I have an index of every possible combination of playing card that I would need. I have it right here, and we'll show you exactly how to do that a little bit later on in the show. So what we're working on here is basically a one behind principle, where we're going to get the correct balls in the audience ahead of time before they even know what's going on. And then we're going to turn around and rewrite history so they forget when the balls were tossed out. Then we are going to do an invisible deck routine that it's going to be fantastic. And then the ending, the killer prediction ending, when you have the people come up on stage, open up the pieces of paper, and they see the card that they randomly thought of. No one sees that coming. All right, welcome back. Right now, I'd like to go over everything that you are going to need to purchase in order to set up and in order to start performing Killer Prediction. Now, this is a one-time setup, and you're going to have to go to maybe a hobby store, a craft store, a Target, a Walmart, only once. And the cool thing about it is once it's set up, you'll never have to do it again. It should take you, once you have all the props, it should take you maybe around 10 or 15 minutes to set everything up. First thing you are going to need is you're going to need an invisible deck. You can get these from any standard magic dealer. I do put a rubber band on here for a very specific reason. I don't want the audience member to open up the box and play with it. So, or you can put it in an envelope. But you need an invisible deck. You could also use a brainwave deck, and I'll go over that handling a little bit later on using the brainwave deck. So if you're more comfortable using brainwave, you can also use that. You're going to need a this is a little a pen holder. You get this as an office supply store. I think Office Depot, Office Max, Staples. I got it because it looks like a little tiny trash can. And it's this is what's going to be used to hold the paper balls a little bit later on. Let's see what else you need here inside my box of goodies. You're going to need to create for yourself the Killer Prediction Index. The first part is this plastic box. I purchased this plastic box at Walmart, and it was less than $5. And you can find it in the camping section or in the section where they sell fishing supplies. I think this is originally something that you use to hold tackle if you're going to go and fish. I bought it literally, like I say, it was less than $5, and it has just the right number of compartments. It's plastic and it packs flat, lid closed. It's really cool. So here's your index of paper balls. I'll go over that in a second. On the top part of the box here, this is what you don't need this. I guess if you know where all the balls are, I like this to have this as a cheat sheet. I just took a little piece of paper, I made some grid lines that match these grids here, and these are actually felt letters and numbers that I put here. You don't have to stick these here. You can just take a black marker and write this out, but one of my kids was doing a craft project and he wanted to help me out, so he did this all nice and neat for me. So this is this part right here. These numbers correspond to ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, jack, queen, king, which then corresponds to this piece of paper has the word ace written on it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, jack, queen, and king. Now, when you're writing out these on pieces of paper, you're going to want to write out the full word. Do not just put an A or put a 2. You're going to write out the actual word TWO, THREE. So that's just a little hint for that, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. The other colored papers are, we have here this HOC, this stands for Heart of Clubs. This is my hearts, this is my of, and then this is clubs, spades, and diamonds. So I have this set up like this because this is how I initially sort of thought of it, and it helps me. I'm just very used to how this works. If you have a different way that you want to set up your box, I say go for it. If you have a mnemonic or you've done this type of thing before, go with whatever works for you. This is just how I set it up, and I have a reason for setting it up like this, just because there's certain cards that I, in my experience, get chosen more often than not. Also, when you're choosing your paper to write them on, this is just standard colored paper. I tend to stay away from construction paper. It tends to be a little bit too flimsy. And I also tend to stay away from cardstock because cardstock is very hard to crumble up into a paper ball, and it makes your index really big and bulky. These are standard 8.5 by 11. These pieces of paper came from just a big ream of paper with a whole bunch of pastel colors or bright colors. I tend to use bright colors as well. You can use stuff like red, white, and blue for a 4th of July theme or something, but just keep in mind that if you're going to write on a darker piece of paper, it's not going to be as easy for the audience to see when you do the final reveal at the very end. So I tend to sort of choose lighter colors. So here's basically the index, how it is set up. Join me back here in a second, and we'll actually get into the full working of the routine. All right, let's talk about how to set this up for a real-life performance. Now, for years, I used to perform this out of a briefcase on stage. I've even performed it out of a little catalog case where I just had this sort of leaned up against the back of the catalog case. Let me tell you my favorite way to do this now, because now with what I've discovered recently is I can do this trick pretty much anywhere, anytime, and surrounded. And I like the fact that I can walk it on, do the trick, and walk it off. You go to places like Target. I've seen these at Lowe's. I've seen these at Walmart. You can find these little collapsible boxes, and these things are fantastic. It comes in 2 pieces, and it has a little hard piece here, and then it opens up to give you your box. And then all you do is you take this little piece here and place it right in the bottom, and all that little piece does, it just makes for it just makes it a little bit sturdy. Okay. Now I carry my index because obviously you don't want this to be seen by everybody on stage. I carry my index inside of one of these boxes. It basically lives inside this box. I'm going to place it right inside of here. I'm going to give you a close-up of what that looks like inside the box. And as you can see, it's completely hidden from all angles. I can do this with people, you know, 3 feet away from me, completely surrounded, and no one can see inside the box except for myself. So let's set it up now. I have my invisible deck, is usually inside the case as well, and I have what I refer to during the actual performance is a little trash can, where I say, ladies and gentlemen, I like to start off the show with a little trick, a trick with some trash, and I'm going to have 3 paper balls inside this container. And here's what I do. I actually, sometimes I get really lucky, and I'll tell you how I do that in the show, is a lot of times, more often than not, just because the way I word it, I will get the 10 of hearts as the chosen card. So instead of, let's take a chance. If I get lucky, there's no work I have to do whatsoever. So what I do is I take and I put the 10 in the bottom. The next one I put in there is I take the hearts ball. That goes right there. And last but not least, the of right there on top. So we have 3 pieces of paper. We have the orange one is the of, this is the hearts, and the last one is the 10. So like I said before, a lot of times, if I can get them to say high and even, hearts is usually the common one that's chosen. A lot of times I don't have any work to do. It's right here, the 10 of hearts, way to go. Let me just show you what it looks like now on the inside of the case, because there are some that are no longer in there. Like I said, the 10 of hearts is no longer inside of my case. So those empty slots, that's basically what it is. So to start off, this is on stage this, or maybe I'll walk on carrying this. This is right here inside my case like that, ready to go. And I've got my invisible deck or my brainwave deck just on my person, or it could be inside the box. To start the routine off, I need to get the deck in play. And what I will typically do is bring out the invisible deck you see in the performance. I will hand it to somebody who's fairly close by, because I'm going to bring this person up on stage, and we're going to do some dual reality with the invisible deck. So I hand this to a person. Do me a favor, hold on to this. I may need it a little bit later on in the show. And again, I don't give this away at the beginning of the show. I give this deck away right before I do this trick. If they were to hold on to this the entire show, they may be tempted to play with it. So hand that out to the person in the front row. So now we're going to get into the bulk of the routine. The way it works is we're working on a one behind principle, So I always start off, I reach into my case here and I say, ladies and gentlemen, a little trick with some trash. And again, it looks like a little trash can, and I love the visual of this. They see 3 pieces of paper. They see an orange one, they see a green one, and they also see a yellow piece of paper. And that's going to be consistent throughout this entire routine. Every time I place this back in my case, they're always going to see one less piece of paper in the correct order. It just really helps to sell the fact that you don't have an index. But don't worry, laymen aren't thinking about you've got 20 pieces of crumbled up pieces of paper in here. So to start the routine off, I take out the first one, which is the of, and I turn my back towards the audience briefly, because I don't like to lose eye contact with my audience for too long, but I'm doing it while I'm giving them instructions. I take the piece of paper, I toss it over my head, and I try to make it go right in the center, because this is the of piece of paper. It needs to be right in the center. So toss this behind you and have somebody catch it, and I just say, hold on to that for me, and could you please stand up? So you have a person there, and they're standing up, and they have this ball. They have no idea it has of on it. And I say, I'm going to use everybody in the audience, or as many people as I can, to try to make a couple of random decisions. Now I take this thing back. As I say this, I put this back in my case. But when I put it back in my case, here's what I do. I don't know if I'm going to get the hearts just yet. More than likely, I will get hearts, because I usually get hearts a lot. So when I put it back in my case, my hand goes in here like this, holds on to the bottom one, which is that 10, and as I put it back into my case, I dump that out, and I just set it down right there. So I know that my hearts is right here, or wherever it lands. I know my hearts is right there. I also know that right here I have my clubs, my spades, and my diamonds. So I dump it out as I set it back down in here. So we're right here. So now I address the person who's standing up. I say, we have some decisions we need to make together as a group. In a deck of cards, there are 52 playing cards. Ace through king of clubs, ace through king of diamonds, ace through king of hearts, ace through king of spades. There's 4 suits, clubs, hearts, spades, and diamonds. There's 2 red ones and 2 black ones. I know this is a lot to take in. That's why we're all going to work together here. So the first person I asked, I said, we need to choose a suit. Are we going to use the red ones, or are we going to use the black ones? Okay, so if she says red, then I say, great, let's use the red ones. Of the 2 red ones, there's hearts and diamonds. Are we going to use the hearts, or are we going to use the diamonds? And I always word it the same way, because some laymen may be aware of the magic choice thing. And so I always say, which one are we going to use? That's the one we're going to use. So I keep it very clear. If your audience is confused by what you're saying, you don't have an effect. It needs to be a very clear effect. So what are we going to use? If she says hearts, fantastic. I know where it is, or clubs, spades, diamonds. Let's just say that she says hearts. When I go back into my case again, here's what happens. When I go back into my case to pick up my little trash can, all I do is I grab whichever suit that she says, I drop it in there as it comes out. Now that was the hearts. If she would have said the spades, I would have put the spades in there. If she would have said diamonds, I would have put the diamonds in there. So right now, I pull it out and I have the heart. Okay, so I'm one behind. I know what the suit is. So we have the 10 and we have the heart right here. Now, at this point, I'm going to throw this one out. Now, I need to throw this one out on this side of the audience, or to my left. So I said, you know what? Let's get some more people involved in the audience. And sometimes you can have them clapping or whatnot. You know, I usually play music during this point because it just, you know, it just makes it fun for the audience. I take out the heart, because that's the suit that she chose. I once again turn my back to the audience briefly, and now I throw it out on this side of the audience. I just chunk it over my head, you know, say, who's got it? If you got it, stand up, please, you know, stand up, blah, blah, blah. So now this person is holding on to the hearts. Now I take this one here, and once again, I'm going to place it back into my case. Now as I place it back into my case, just like I did previous, very simple. Now remember, this has the 10 on it. I place it back into my case. I just dump this out as I place it here. And sometimes it can land anywhere, but it just happened to land right there. But I know, I can see where it lands. I know that is the 10. So at this point here, I say to this person over here who's holding on to the green one that actually says hearts on it, I said, all right, we have some more decisions to make. I said, we know it's going to be red. We know it's going to be a heart. There are odd cards and even cards. Is it going to be odd or even? Now, I do this for a reason. I used to just have them name a number. But if you just have them name a number, they can name any number. But if I say odd or even, A, it gives one more choice. But B, most people say even, just like most people say hearts. Most people will just tend to say even, I've noticed. So if I can get them to say even, okay, even, fantastic. Is it going to be a high card or a low card? And again, by saying high first and low second, I can usually get them to say high card. Again, I'm not trying to force it. I'm just telling you in my experience, having done this for 5 or 6 years now, probably longer, this is what typically happens. So they say, is it going to be odd or even? It's going to be even, fantastic. Is it going to be high or low? It's going to be a high card. I say name a high even number, you know. Now, the reason I get 10 a lot is because when you ask a layman, as far as playing cards go, to name a high even number for playing cards, they don't know what values court cards are. They don't know if the king is a 13 or the jack. They just don't know that. So the highest even number they can think of in a deck of cards is 10. That's why, just experience shows, I just usually get 10. So let's pretend that they don't say 10. Let's pretend that I say, is it going to be odd or even? It's going to be odd. It's going to be high or low? It's going to be low. Name a low odd card. She says 3. I go back to my case one last time. I say, give her a big round of applause as I go back to my case. And now I know it's going to be the 3. So what I will do here is I go back to my case. I go in here, and I know this is my 10 from earlier. I dropped in there. I go ace, 2, 3. I pick up that 3, and in one continuing motion, come out of the case. Now, what's really cool about this is I like the way that you start off with 3 different pieces of paper, and they're different colors, which kind of throws people off the fact that you could even have an index, because people think if you have all these colors, it would have to be too big. It's counterintuitive, really. So they see 3, and then they see 2, and they finally see 1. Now the last one here, this was the hardest one to deal with because I already have all the information that I need. I know it's going to be the 10, or this, I think the 3 of hearts at this point. So the last one I need to throw on my right-hand side. So again, I take it out, I dump it out, turn my back to the audience briefly, toss it over my shoulder, and somebody on this side of the audience catches it. At this point, this trash can or little just goes right back into my case. So what question do we need to ask this final person? I have all the information I need, and this is what I struggle with for the longest time. So I look at the last person and I say, this will make sense a little bit later on, but when I snap my fingers, I want you to choose either face up or face down. 1, 2, 3, bam. She says, face down. I say, fantastic. I say, ladies and gentlemen, let's recap what has taken place here. I said, when I walked out on stage, I handed you a deck of cards. Right after I handed you a deck of cards, I tossed out paper balls all over the audience. And here's where I lie a bit. I say, I randomly tossed out balls all over the audience. A couple people caught the balls. I had you stand up. Some people said red, some people said high, some people said odd, even, low, black, face up, face down. all the decisions were completely determined by what you told me. Okay? And so at this point, I just sort of rewrote history a little bit, and nobody can remember when I, threw out the balls or anything. So at this point, I get the person up on stage who has the invisible deck. And we're going to come back in just a second. I'm going to show you how that dual reality works, how we're going to fool the person on stage, and we're going to fool the audience. And a lot of times, because of this dual reality, it even fools our fellow magic friends. So come back in just a second, and I'll show you how that works. All right, to recap, we've just thrown out the 3 pieces of paper. We now know that the card is the 3 of hearts. We have a 3 over here. This person is holding on to the of. This person is holding on to the hearts. These people have set back down, and now you address the person who has your invisible deck. I invite this person to come up on stage with me, and I do this for a reason. I want this to look really fair. I say to my onstage volunteer, I said, the reason I invited you up here is because I want to show you something in this deck of cards, and I want you to be the eyes and ears of the audience. I'm going to do it very slow, and I want you to answer questions yes or no and be honest. Now, I take the rubber band off, and now I remove the deck from the box with whatever card that was selected facing me. Now, just because of habit, I always know the odd cards are facing me. You may have a different system, and if you're using a brainwave deck, you may have a different system as well. But I know the odd cards are facing me. I know the card is the 3 of hearts. So I remove it from the box with the odd cards facing me. Now, here's how the dual reality of this invisible deck handling sort of comes into play. My volunteer is right here. I hold the deck up in front of her eyes. And so her head is here. She's looking at the deck here. The audience is looking at this side. And what I say is very important. And also, during the performance, the lady chose face down. And again, I'm going to just bring that up once more. Most people forget about the face up, face down thing, but I'm going to say it one more time. I say, now I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'd like you to answer honestly yes or no. Are all the cards facing exactly the same way? And I start to spread my invisible deck towards her, and she can clearly see that all the cards are facing the exact same way. She's looking at the faces of the cards. She assumes the audience is looking at the backs of the cards. The audience is looking at the faces of the cards. They assume she's looking at the backs of the cards. So from both point of view, everything that I say makes complete sense. And if anybody in the audience has ever purchased an invisible deck or thinking some kind of trick deck, this completely throws them off. So as I spread through the deck, again I say, please answer yes or no. Are all the cards facing exactly the same way? And of course she says yes. Now I wait until I get to the card that was chosen. In this example, it's the 3 of hearts, and I see the 3 of hearts right there. When I get to it, I separate the rough pair, and then I literally just sort of push it behind that card just like that. Again, I'm not trying to do it 100% where she doesn't see it or I'm hiding it from her, but I do it as fast as I can, and if she doesn't see it, great. And now, once I've done that, I do this. I say all the cards are facing exactly the same way. Yes. And then I say, but one card is face down. And when I say face down, I point to the lady in the audience who chose face down. I say one card is face down. Now at this point, here's the situation. The onstage volunteer who's standing right here over my right shoulder, she thinks it's this card. The audience who's looking at this side, they think it's this card. We solve that very simply by just upstaging our onstage volunteer. So as I do this, what I do is I cut the deck at this point, I separate it at the roughed pair, bringing this one to the face and bringing this one to the back. So if it's right here, I'm just bringing this one here like this, but I do it up here. I bring it to the face just like that, and then I square up. Now the audience, this is the card to the audience. My onstage volunteer, it's this one here. So I need to switch this card for this card to fool my onstage volunteer. And how do I do it? I do it by upstaging the onstage volunteer. Again, she is right here, and I do that as my hand comes up here, I step in front of my onstage volunteer as I remove this card. My whole body is blocking the entire deck. So if she is right here, I come here, I grab the front card, I pull it off the front, I continue to step to the side as this hand just goes south, it lowers and it looks normal. Then I take the card and I say, I don't want to say it, I want you to say it. Go ahead and name the card. She says the 3 of hearts. I turn around the 3 of hearts. Big round of applause. And always do this. It's a subtle thing, but I see people who do invisible deck, and when they do that, they place the card back there to reset. Now it looks like an invisible deck again. I never do that. I take the card and I just place it right back on top of the deck like you would a normal deck of cards. My onstage volunteer is then invited off stage to a thunderous round of applause. And I place the cards back in the card box. Everything goes back where it started from in my case. Big round of applause. And for all practical purposes, that is the end of the routine. The audience thinks that the trick is over. This is where we're going to just give them a kick in the side of the head here. I kind of pause. I'm like, every time I do this, people always come up to me and say, man, that was a cool card trick that you just did, after the show. But the truth of the matter is, it wasn't a card trick. The truth of the matter is, I didn't even need to use cards. And again, I rewrite history again. I said, you remember, when I first walked out here, I threw out 3 pieces of paper. And I say it like this. In other words, like I did it all at once. You guys named random things, high, low, odd, even, red, black, clubs, hearts, spades, diamonds. You made the entire decision about what card we were going to use. I asked the 3 people, the 3 people who have the pace, that's a twister. I asked the 3 people.
Just start back a second.
Okay. I asked the 3 people. Ready? Here we go. It's okay. I asked the 3 people who were holding on to the 3 pieces of paper to please stand up. I say, will you please come to the front of the stage? I don't bring them on stage with me because that would waste a lot of time, and especially if I'm on a high riser, they would have to go all the way down and all the way up. I just want them to come to the front of the stage. I say, please come to the front of the stage, and I gesture for them like this because I specifically want them to come up here in a certain order. I don't want them just randomly to come up because I'm trying to create this beautiful picture at the very end. So I say, will you come up here? Will you please come up here? And will you please come up here? And again, when I'm throwing the balls out, I don't throw them really far into the audience. I want them kind of close because I don't want this to take a lot of time to get to this kicker ending. So please join me up here in the front. Will you join me here? And you join me here. Do me a favor. If you have a piece of paper, I'd like you to unfold that piece of paper carefully. And I say unfold it carefully because I don't want them to rip it open. I've had people try to rip it open like a present before, and it ruins that beautiful picture at the end. So I say unfold a piece of paper very carefully. And I'll do one example here. The person here in the center has the of. I say unfold it very carefully. And then I always say you should see some writing on that piece of paper. When you see the writing, read it to yourself first. Because if not, they're going to try to hold it up and read it at the same time, and it just doesn't work out. I say open it up. You should see some writing, and I want you to read it to yourself first. And also, the reason I say read it to yourself first is because they now know the proper orientation of what this is. This one happens to be the of one. So by them reading it to themselves first, they know when I say hold it up, they know to hold it up like this. And I say hold it up high above your head, okay? So if they don't read it to themselves first, if they just open it up and hold it up, they could hold it up like this, they could hold it up like this. So just years of experience says, open up the piece of paper, read it to yourself first, and once you've done that, hold it up high so everyone else can see it. And what you end is with this beautiful picture on stage, or actually at the foot of the stage, of 3 people holding on to 3 pieces of paper. One is going to say of. The first one over here that they open up, it's going to say, let's get this, the suspense is killing me. And the winner is, the Emmy goes to 3. So we got the 3, we got the of, and last but not least, we have the, what was the suit chosen earlier? I've already forgotten. Here we go. Yes, the 3 of hearts, just like that. And so the end picture is you on stage, and when they have the 3 pieces of paper and they're holding them up, you're slightly above them, you give yourself a wonderful little applause cue. You have this, ladies and gentlemen, the 3 of hearts. Thank you very much. And you end right here. That's a beautiful picture, beautifully framed. So that is basically how it works. Come back a little bit later on, and I'm going to give you some tips and ideas on how to use this with a brainwave deck. I want to clarify the third question that you ask your volunteer in the audience. It's that ambiguous question that doesn't mean anything, but we're going to later on give meaning to it. So the last person that you're addressing, you ask them a question, you say, this will make sense later on, but choose either face up or face down. Say they choose face down. Once the onstage volunteers comes up on here, and we're going to do the dual reality thing, I take the deck, and again, like you saw previously, I say, are all the cards facing exactly the same direction? Of course, they say yes. Now I say, but one card is face down. And then I point to the lady who said face down. Again, just sort of like giving justification for asking that question, like that question was important. Even though it wasn't important for me to get the card, I say one card is face down. So that's how I handle the face down thing. How do I handle it if they say face up? Again, I always emphasize what they say, never what they do not say. So again, just like before, the deck is here. She said face up this time. So I say, I'm going to remove the cards from the box and we'll spread through the cards face up. And again, I gesture to her as if I'm giving her choice justification. And also, when I say face up, it really helps to play the dual reality thing here. I say, I spread through the cards face up. And then everybody is agreeing that the cards are face up. And I say, however, one card is facing the opposite direction. I never say, if they say face up, I never say one card is face down. I always say one card is facing the opposite direction. Wouldn't it be amazing? Wouldn't it be a miracle? Step in front, do the move if the one card was the Three of Hearts. Reset like that. So just keep that in mind. I always emphasize what they say. If they say face down, I say I remove the cards, I spread through the cards, and one card is face down. If they say face up, I say I'll spread through the deck, face up, and one card is facing the opposite direction. So that's how you handle the face up, face down thing, and that's just how I give that last question a little bit of meaning just so it makes sense. So you want to use this with a brainwave deck and not an invisible deck. Everything is pretty much exactly the same. Same setup, everything, except you're going to use a brainwave deck. And check your brainwave deck. Your brainwave deck may not be set up in the same way that this particular brainwave deck is set up. Depending on where you order it and what brand you have, you're going to have to work this out in your own mind just so it makes sense to you. So if you're using a brainwave deck, again, I wrap it up and I hand it to somebody in the front row. And when I take it back, I don't get to do the dual reality because with the brainwave, you're just not going to be able to do the dual reality. And the last question that you ask that person is different. When using the invisible deck, it's face up or face down. When using a brainwave deck, I always ask the question, do me a favor, choose red or black. I'm sorry, choose red or blue. So, and also when I'm using a brainwave deck, I never have it in the correct color box. I usually take it and put my brainwave deck in a white card box. And if you don't have a white card box, there's a couple ways to get one. You can take a card box such as this, razor blade it open, turn it inside out, or even easier, just take a can of spray paint and spray paint this entire deck white. So now you don't have to worry about removing a red deck or removing a white deck or something. And usually on my brainwave deck with a white card box, I've got a big question mark right here. So it's kind of an interesting prop to hand out. So let's say that on the last question, I said red or blue. And let's just say that she says red. I remove it from the box. And again, on this brainwave deck, I know that my Three of Hearts is going to be 1, 2, 3. It's right here. So if when she names a color, she says blue, then my immediate response would be, I'm going to take the cards out of the box. And you'll notice that every card in the entire deck is blue or has a blue back. You'll also notice that the card that you freely name, the Three of Hearts, is face up. But the only card that doesn't have a blue back is the Three of Hearts. And again, it's just, you're just going to have to figure out, your combination, however it's going to work. But whatever thing they say, now if they were to say, if she were to say red, I would do it like this, exactly the same. So earlier on, is it going to be red or blue? She says red. I remove the brainwave deck from the white card box. And now she said red this time, so I'm pulling out a blue deck. I said, you will notice that every single card in the deck is actually blue. But you said red. The one card in the entire deck that has a red back is the three of hearts. So then you get that effect. It's a slightly separate effect using a brainwave deck, but the red-blue question, it makes a little bit more sense. You have to think a little bit more on your feet when you're using a brainwave deck. Where are your cards? Are your red cards odd? Are your blue cards, you know? So you have to think a little bit more on your feet. The question makes a little bit more sense, but having done it both ways, I tend to use the invisible deck a little bit more because I like the onstage volunteer, I like the dual reality, and the face-up, face-down question is so ambiguous, I've never been questioned on it, and at the end of the effect, when they're holding up those three pieces of paper, nobody remembers what happened or when it happened. So there you go, that's using brainwave, that's using invisible deck. Pick one that works best for you, have fun with it. All right, I'd like to share with you now just a couple of pro tips. These are things that I've just discovered over the years by basically doing it the wrong way a lot. So hopefully these ideas will just kind of help you. First of all, with the pieces of paper. Like I said before, I like to use colored pieces of paper. Your index can be all the same color, but by having the three separate color pieces of paper for the of, the suits, and then the values, it somehow throws off the idea of an index. And also using light pieces of paper to write on. Now, not too light, because you will notice that it can shine through the back. So be careful whenever you are writing on this. Be careful that not to get too close to the edges, because whenever you crumble up the piece of paper, another little pro tip here is whenever you're crumbling up this piece of paper, you are going to want to make sure that none of the writing shows through, because that could tip, you know, part of the method. If they look on here and maybe see something, you know, as they're holding on to it, then it tips that maybe something is written on here. So just something to keep in mind. Another good tip is whenever you're writing on the piece of paper, this is a fairly fat, wide-tipped marker, but they sell even fatter tipped markers, and you can make this as fat and wide as you want to. Like I say, this is a wide-tipped Sharpie marker, but they have those jumbo markers that will give you a much bigger display picture at the very end. So keep in mind, you know, just depending on what kind of crowd you're playing, when I'm doing a corporate show or something like this, this is perfect size. If I was doing maybe a college show with 500 or 700 people there, I may want a little bit larger of a picture. Also, like I stated before, take advantage of what you have. Any things that just naturally occur during your show. I always keep it preloaded up with the 10 of hearts. Having done this for years, it seems like for some reason I just always seem to get 10 of hearts. And it's something, it's not like whenever you have somebody just call out a card. If you just do that, you get ace of spades, or if it's a lady, queen of hearts. But because of the selection procedure, you are more often than not going to get 10 of hearts, especially when you break it down. They usually say red, they usually say heart. And when you do the odd even thing, if you can get them to do high even, more often than not, it's going to be a 10. So that's another tip right there. Another tip that I would like to share with you is a lot of people are really nervous about going into the box here and switching out literally two pieces of paper. It is not a big deal. No one is looking in there. They see three pieces of paper every time you go, then two, then one. Nobody is thinking you have this ginormous index. You're switching out pieces of paper. So here's what here's how I cover it though. After the person is, you know, standing up, and after she gives me whatever information that I needed, like say the hearts information, I say, do me a favor, as she has a seat, everybody please give her a big round of applause. And I'm standing right next to my case. So while she is taking her seat and everybody's giving her a big round of applause, I use that opportunity to go into my case, do the necessary work, either put the heart one back in there, or they chose diamonds, just, you know, get the appropriate one and come back out. And usually by the time I've done that and I've got my little cup here and I'm back out, the applause are just dying down and nobody is even the wiser. I've done this at magic conventions tons of times, and people are always telling me that they never remember me going to my case. They never remember me going one time to my case. I guess the last little bit of information I could give you on this is how to customize this. I use this all the time for corporate work, trade shows. And here's what I do. Instead of just having those pieces of paper, oftentimes before I get to the venue, I'll ask them during our initial client consult over the phone, I'll ask them to send me some of their company brochures or some of their company information, or are you guys going to be handing out anything during the show tonight? And I will use, as my index, I will use their company brochures, their company flyers, whatever else, and I'll write on there too. Yes, it takes about 10 or 15 minutes to do that. I'm going to take out my old index, put the new index in there, but I guarantee you when you show up to an event like a sales training meeting and they all have their agenda, even their syllabus or something, what they're going over, and you're tossing that out and they open it up and they see it's on their company letterhead, it plays so much stronger. It doesn't seem like it could be gimmicked. It doesn't seem like you'd have 20 pieces of paper in here. You only have those 3. So take it, have a good time, use it, customize it. Go out there and start killer predicting things. All right, I thought I would share this story with you and use it as an illustration about how we can sometimes learn from our mistakes, or I think you should always learn from your mistakes. The whole dual reality, people have asked me a lot of times, how did you come up with that dual reality thing for the invisible deck, with the person behind you and the audience both seeing sort of the same things but kind of different? And to be honest with you, that I wish I could take credit for it as that being something that I just thought up. But that came about via complete accident. When I was back in college, I was working 4 or 5 restaurants. One of the restaurants I was working was a Mexican food restaurant named Papacitos there in Austin, Texas. And I was doing invisible deck. And even though I ended up teaching math and science later on, I was never good at doing the invisible deck math, table to table. I'd always forget, it adds up to 14, adds up to 13. So when I was doing invisible deck, I would often do the version not where I spread down here and do the math, because there was sometimes I would just flub the math. I would do the version where you hold it upright, you would look for the card, say the ace of diamonds, and then show that was a card that was reversed, and then I would reveal it like that. So I was doing it like that. Well, how the dual reality came is one night I was working table hopping at my restaurant, and I approached a table, and I got sort of in between 2 people at the table, but I didn't think that they could see behind me because they were far enough here. What I didn't realize is that right behind me on the wall, like right here, there was a mirror on the wall. So I go into my standard invisible deck routine that I use for table hopping, magically produce the deck, 1 card is named, 1 card is reversed, and I pulled the deck out of the case, and the lady right here, I guess because she had such a bad view of things, she was looking in the mirror behind me. And I had no idea that she was looking in the mirror behind me, and I spread through the cards, and I just asked, I'm like, all the cards are facing the same way? And she's like, yes, they are. But I had no idea she was looking at the mirror, which was right behind me. And then I get to the point, so all the cards are facing exactly the same way, except for 1 card is turned around backwards, yes? And she says, yes, it is. And I see her pointing, and she's pointing at the mirror behind me. And of course, I'm looking at this here, and the audience is looking at this here, so I slowly turn around, and I look at the mirror that's right behind me, and I just basically, I'm not sure how I ended that night. I may just cut the deck or flub the trick up. I'm not even sure how it ended. All I know is that I panicked. But what I got out of that is later on when I was sort of thinking about that story in my head, and I'm trying to think of, all right, I need to make sure I don't do invisible deck in front of a mirror ever again, because it was a horrible experience. But I started to think about that, and what she was looking at the mirror was the same thing that they were seeing in front of me. And so the more I thought about that, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm saying one thing, she's agreeing with me, the audience is agreeing with me, and so that's how I came up with that invisible deck dual reality sort of thing. So the take-home message there is when you do something, you flub up, you bring out the wrong deck, you find the wrong card, or something happens, take some time to really think about it and really reflect on it, and sometimes you can come up with something even better. Take that lesson, enjoy it, and I'll see you next time.
Brought to you by the Magic Estate.